Question 1 says find the zeros of the following quadratic polynomials and verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Now we have done similar questions in the examples before, so if you haven't watched those videos you can also watch them. Okay, now let us begin with the first part. Let p of x equals to x square minus 2x minus 8. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to first find the zeros and then we have to find the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Okay, let's begin with the zeros. How will we find the zero? If we put px equal to 0, so first we will factorize this polynomial. Okay, how do we factorize? We split the middle term. So what is the coefficient of x squared? It is 1, and what is the constant term? It's minus 8. So this is minus 8. How do we factorize minus 8? So that the sum is minus 2. We can write it as minus 4 into 2, and minus 4 plus 2 are gives us minus 2. Okay, so let us write here x square plus 2x minus 4x minus 8. We can write it as this. Okay, so if we consider these two terms, we get what common? We get x common and we are left with x plus 2, and from these two terms we have minus 4 common and we are left with x plus 2. So from these two terms, what do we get common? X plus 2, and what are we left behind? X minus 4. So we can find the zero of the polynomial px if p of x equal to 0. That means this thing equal to 0. That is if either x plus 2 equal to 0 or x minus 4 equal to 0. That is, I can say if x equals to minus 2 or x equals to 4. So minus 2 and 4 are the zeros of polynomial px. Okay, now we have to verify, the second part is we have to verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Okay, now we know that for a quadratic polynomial, the sum of the zeros is minus of coefficient of x upon coefficient of x square, and the product of the zeros is constant term upon coefficient of x square. Now let us first come to the sum of the zeros. Now sum of the zeros, from here we can say minus 2 plus 4, which is equals to 2. So I can write this as minus of minus 2 upon 1. Now minus from here, from this polynomial, what we can say, minus, what is minus 2? Minus 2 is coefficient of x, and what is 1? 1 is the coefficient of x square. Okay, now let us come to the product of the zeros. Product of the zeros is minus 2 into 4, which gives us minus 8. So I can write this as minus 8 by 1. Now I know that minus 8 is what? The constant term. And what is 1? It is the coefficient of x square. Now let's come to the second part. Let p of s. Now this polynomial is in the terms of variable. What is the variable here? S. So p of s equals to 4s square minus 4s plus 1. Okay, now again we will split the middle term. So what is the multiplication of 4 into 1? We have 4. So how do we split 4 so that we get minus 4 as their addition? We can say minus 2 into minus 2 is 4, and minus 2 plus minus 2 is minus 4. Okay, so I can write this as minus 4s square minus 2s plus 1. So I can write this once again as, if we from these two terms, what I can say is common 2s, and what is left behind? 2s minus 1. From here we can take minus 1 common and we are left with 2s minus 1. Now from these two terms, what is common? 2s minus 1, and what are we left behind? 2s minus 1. Okay, so ps, we can find the zero of the polynomial when ps is 0. So when is ps 0? When these two terms are 0. That is when 2s minus 1 equal to 0 and 2s minus 1 equal to 0. So we have two identical zeros over here. So I can say s equals to half and half. So these are the two identical zeros. Now let us come to the second part of the question, which says us to verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Okay, now let us come to the sum of the zeros, which is half plus half, which is equals to 1. So I can write this as minus of minus 4 by 1. Now from here, I can say what is minus 4? Minus 4 is the coefficient of s upon what is 4? 4 is the coefficient of s square, right? What is the product of zeros now? Product of zeros is half into half, which is equals to 1 by 4. Now 1 we know is the constant term, right? And what is 4? 4 is the coefficient of s square. So here again we have proved the relationship. Now let's come to the third part of the question. Okay, now let p of x equals to, I can write this as 6x square minus 7x minus 3 also. So now let px equal to 6x square minus 7x minus 3. Okay, we split the middle term once again. So what is the multiplication of 6 and minus 3? It is minus 18. How do we split minus 18 so that the sum is minus 7? Minus 9 into 2, right? So I can write this as 6x square minus 9x plus 2x minus 3. So from these two terms, what is common? 3x. What are we left behind? 2x minus 3. From these two terms, what is common? Nothing. So I can take one common. So what are we left behind? 2x minus 3. So from these two terms, what is common? 2x minus 3. And what are we left behind? 3x plus 1. Okay. So we can find the zeros of the polynomial when we put p of x equal to 0. That is, this whole thing equal to 0, that is either 2x minus 3 equal to 0 or 3x plus 1 equal to 0. Okay, so that is, we can say that x equals to 3 by 2 or x equals to minus 1 by 3. So these, this and this, these two are the zeros of the given polynomial. Now let us verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Okay, now the sum of the zeros. Let's come to the sum of the zeros, which is equals to minus 3 plus 3 by 2 from here. Okay, so what is the, we can say that this is equal to 7 by 6. I can write this as minus of minus 7 by 6. Now we know that minus 7 is what? Coefficient of x, and what is 6? 6 is the coefficient of x square. Now let us come to the product of the zeros, which is equals to 3 by 2 into minus 1 by 3. So if we find the whole value, what are we left with? We are left with minus 3 by 6. Now we know that minus 3 is what? The constant term. What is 6? 6 is the coefficient of x square. Let us now come to the fourth part of the question. So let pu equals to 4u square plus 8u, right? So from these two terms, what I can say is common, 4u, we are left with u plus 2. So we can find the zeros of the polynomial if we put p of u equals to 0, that is either 4u equals to 0, either this term equal to 0 or this term equal to 0, right? That is either u equal to 0 or u equals to minus 2. So 0 and minus 2 are the zeros of the polynomial p of u. Okay, now let us verify the relationship of zeros and coefficients. So sum of zeros is 0 plus minus 2, which gives us minus 2. So I can write this as minus of minus 8 by 4, right? So I can write this as minus of, what is 8 here? Coefficient of u. And what is 4 here? 4 is the coefficient of u square. Okay, now let us come to the product of zeros. So we have 0 into minus 2, which gives us 0. So I can write this as 0 by 4. So we know here there is no constant term. So the constant term is 0. So I can say this is equal to constant term upon what is 4, coefficient of u square. Now let's come to the fifth part. Let p of t equals to t square minus 15. Now we know that a square minus b square equals to a plus b and a minus b. So we can write this as t plus root 15 into t minus root 15. So I can say we can find the zeros of the polynomial pt if pt equals to 0, that is either t plus root 15 equal to 0 or t minus root 15 equal to 0, that is either t equals to minus root 15 or t equals to root 15. So root 15 and minus root 15 are the zeros of the polynomial p of t. Now let us verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficient. Okay, now the sum of zeros is equals to minus root 15 plus root 15, which is equal to 0. I can write this as minus of 0 by 1. So I know that the coefficient of t in this polynomial is 0. So I can say this as minus of coefficient of t upon what is 1 here? Coefficient of t square, right? Now let us come to the product of zeros. Product of zeros is minus root 15 into root 15, which gives us minus of 15. So I can write this as minus 15 by 1. Now from here we know that minus 15 is the constant term. And what is 1? 1 is the coefficient of t square, right? Now let's come to the sixth part. Let p of x equals to 3x square minus x minus 4. Okay, now we again split the middle term. How? 3 into minus 4 is minus 12. How do we split it? We split this as 3 into minus 4. So we can write this as 3x square plus 3x minus 4x minus 4, which from here, from these two terms, what is common? 3x, what are we left behind? X plus 1. And from these two terms, what is common? Minus 4, and what are we left behind? X plus 1. Now from these two terms, what is common? X plus 1. What are we left behind? 3x minus 4, right? So we find the zero of the polynomial if p of x equal to 0, that is either this equal to 0 or this equal to 0. That means x plus 1 equal to 0 or 3x minus 4 equal to 0. That is if x equals to minus 1 or x equals to 4 by 3. So the two zeros of the polynomial px are minus 1 and 4 by 3. Now let us verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficient. Okay, now the sum of the zeros is minus 1 plus 4 by 3, which is equals to 1 by 3. I can write this as minus of minus 1 by 3. Now from here we know that minus 1 is the coefficient of x. And what is 3? 3 is the coefficient of x square. Now let us come to the product of zeros. Product of zeros is minus 1 into 4 by 3. I can write this as minus 4 by 3. Now from here we know that minus 4 is the constant term and 3 is the coefficient of x square. So this is how you have to proceed such questions. If you have any queries, leave them down in the comment section below and subscribe to the channel and share the video with your friends.